And welcome back to the 4 Point Plan. Hello, everybody. It is Sunday, November 15th, and I am your host, JR, a drug counselor from Los Angeles, California. And we are here to talk about the 4 Point Plan. As always, I am joined by my two friends. First, we have from deep in his garage in Van Nuys, California, it is Guy. Say hello, Guy. No one can hear
Hello,
you.
everybody.
It's a podcast. You have to talk. You can't just wave at the camera.
I did. I said hello, everybody.
And also joining us from somewhere in the dark is Mr. Sean. Good morning, Sean.
Just kidding. Good morning. I was trying to be that guy just wave to people out there. Good morning.
Say
Good
hello.
morning.
Say hello to the people. They're tuning in. They want to hear all the good things that we got today for the 4 Point Plan.
Hello, people. Hello, hello.
Very nice. Ladies and gentlemen, today is a big day on the 4 Point Plan. We're going to get a little groovy. We're going to get a little spiritual. We're going to talk about a lot of good stuff. You know, the big thing I want to talk about is the 4 Point Plan, man. I want to talk about, people going to meetings, 90 meetings in 90 days. People are like, wow, that's so many meetings, 90 meetings in 90 days. It's only 3 months, man.
It's a lot of meetings.
Every day for 3 months, and then you have successfully completed 90 and 90, right? Also, you need to get a sponsor, someone that you can talk to, someone who has gone through the steps, who's had the experience of getting sober and staying sober. So we want you to get a sponsor, and we want you to get a home group. A home group is a meeting that you never miss. It's filled with people that care about you and know your name. They're always happy to see you. If you don't have a home group, you are
Homeless.
Yeah, we don't want you to be homeless. That's old behavior. We want new
No
behavior.
more transient recovery.
Yes, work recovery. Also,
Transient recovery.
we want you to have a commitment, which means have a service commitment, not just some nonsense. Oh, I'm committed to staying sober. No, we want you to have a service commitment, which means you're going to be actively involved in meetings happening. Maybe you'll be the secretary. You'll be the guy with the key that unlocks the door. Maybe you'll be the guy that sets up the chairs. Maybe you'll be the guy that makes the coffee. You need to have a commitment. You need to get back to the program that gave you a life worth living. So the 4 Point Plan is important. And I struggle with the idea that I can't convince everybody to do the 4 Point Plan. And I don't understand why sometimes, and sometimes it can be really frustrating for me. I want to know, what can I do to help facilitate change in people? How can I help people get to the point where they're ready? I know that people talk about you'll change. Well, my sponsor says, when the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same, then you will change. If it hurts bad enough, then you'll do something different. If you're fed up with being sick and tired, then you'll change. But making people change is nearly impossible. So I've been trying to figure out why. Why can't I not make people change? People whose lives are fucked. People are going to go back to prison if they fail one more drug test and they go and get high again. That is really difficult for me to wrap my head around. How can I make people change? So it's interesting. I look at the people that have done the 4 Point Plan, try to figure out how and why they did it. I look at myself, and I know that, I went to meetings for several years and I wasn't able to change. I wasn't able to stop using, and figuring out what it was that finally helped me to change was a hitting the bottom. People talk about hitting a bottom. This is a metaphor for like when your life is so incredibly terrible that you can't stand how terrible it is, and you can't stand it getting any worse, right? When do you know that you've reached your bottom? And what we say in the program is you've reached your bottom when you stop digging. So uh, I wish that I could help facilitate people to reach their bottom and stop digging and make a decision to change. And for me, it was when they told me that they were going to amputate my arms. But the unfortunate part was it wasn't immediate. Like, I went to a doctor who had been a doctor in not Beirut or Sri Lanka. Where was the first desert storm? It wasn't Iraq, but it was another country near Kuwait. She had been a Kuwaiti army doctor. She had been in the middle of combat treating wounds. And I pulled out my arms one day, and my arms were fucked up, man. I had been uh, skin popping, which means I had been subcutaneously injecting heroin cocaine into my arms, but not intravenously. I could no longer pierce the scarring on the veins of my arms to inject drugs the traditional way. So I would just barely break the skin with the syringe, and the needle would just be under the skin, and I would inject heroin and cocaine. Well, as you know, street heroin and street cocaine in Los Angeles is dirty, dirty shit. And so it infected my arms and began eating its way out. So I had these big, gaping, open wounds on my arms. They were fucking disgusting. They were always bleeding and seeping green pus, stunk like shit. And I just constantly smelled bad and looked bad. And I went to this doctor and I showed her my arms. It was Julie, my wife, had gotten insurance through her job, and she'd gotten me insured so I could go to the doctor. So I go to the doctor, and my arms have been fucked up for a couple months already. And I pull them out, and I show them to this war doctor, this combat doctor from Kuwait, a little Persian lady, and she took a look at my arms, and she said, "Well, sorry, sir, but we're going to have to amputate your arms." And I was like, "No, that's how I get high. I'm using them." So, even though
Did she tell you like just stop using already? Come on.
according to her, we had gone beyond the point of no return. She believed that there was nothing that would keep my arm from being amputated. And I was terrified because it sounded like in that moment she had made the decision and she was about to walk into the other room and get a bone saw and come back and chop my arms off. So I rapidly exited her office. I got the fuck out of there. And I went and bought some heroin and shot up because I couldn't stop using, even when the doctor told me that she was going to cut my arms off. And I continued to go see doctors. I went to see an infectious disease doctor who was a really, really nice guy. And I dug him. And he looked at my arms and he said, "No, they don't have to amputate your arms, but you have to stop shooting heroin." And I was like, "Well, I can't do that either. So what other choices do I have?" So I went to my Suboxone doctor, because when you're hooked on heroin, you have a doctor that prescribes you Suboxone. And I went there and I showed him my arms, and he was pretty disgusted as well. But he was also a pain management doctor, an addiction doctor, so he had seen this before. He said, "Well, JR, there is a way I can save your arms, but you're gonna have to go to a place called the Wound Care Therapy Clinic." And it was a clinic, a regular physical therapy clinic that I went to, I think St. Something Hospital in North Hollywood. And I went there to their physical therapy clinic, and the ladies there were very kind, and they began performing surgeries on me daily. And what they did was they would fill up a whirlpool, a giant whirlpool full of hot water, and they put my arm in it for a half hour. And as soon as it was done, they'd pull it out and put the other arm in the whirlpool, and they'd lay the first arm on a surgical table. They would take a scalpel then and slowly for a half hour cut all the gangrenous tissue, the infected tissue, out of my arms. They called it necrotic tissue. And the only thing I can relate necrotic to is necrosis, which is dead skin. So I was part zombie, and they were trying to cut the zombie out of me with a scalpel. And they would do that one arm for a half hour, and then they'd pull the other arm out, and they'd do that for a half hour. And when they were done, they would lather up both of my arms with Neosporin, and they'd wrap them in these big ass bandages. Now, when I would drive home from the wound care therapy clinic every morning around 8:30 a.m., the first thing I would do would be buy some heroin and go home, and I would take off the big ass bandages and I would shoot up in the very same spot. I could not stop, and it was disgusting. It was painful. It was so painful. I cried in my sleep. Julie told me that she would listen to me while I was sleeping with my arms over my head. That was another thing. When I slept at night, I had to keep my arms up above my head because of the pain. And she said, in my sleep, I would be crying. So she had gotten me a bottle of lidocaine, which is like a numbing liquid that they use with an IV. And so I had this little medical bottle of liquid lidocaine. And when I would wake up in a lot of pain in the middle of the night, I would go and take my heroin syringe and stick it into that bottle and draw up the lidocaine and then inject the lidocaine into my arms that were hurting so bad. so that the pain was horrific, man. And there was more that went along with it because the infection was in my blood as well as just being on my skin. It was in my blood. What I ended up being diagnosed with was MRSA or MRSA, which my understanding is medically resistant staph infection. In other words, if they were to give me antibiotics to take, or if they would take me and put me into IV antibiotics in the hospital, it would still not cure it. It would not really help. So the only way to try to treat it was to cut it out with a scalpel. Horrifically painful. I was sick all the time because it was in the infection was in my blood. I had a fever running 24/7 every day of the week. I was always sweating if you saw me, and either it was from shooting heroin or just because I was super sick with the blood infection. I was always sick. I remember at the end, the only drug that I could get that actually made me feel better was prednisone, which is a steroid because steroids are used as anti-inflammatories, and it would kind of calm my fever a little bit. But I was just constantly ill, man. And so you can just picture me part zombie, getting my arms surgically cut up every day, continuing to shoot heroin and cocaine into my arms, into the open wounds. I was sick all the time. And I was most certainly facing having my arms chopped off or dying. Like I don't think there were any other options. Either they were going to cut my arms off or I was going to die. And even with the wound care therapy clinic, you know, the ladies, the therapists who were cutting the infection out of my arms every day, I was going there Monday through Friday for 6 months. They could tell that I was continuing to shoot up and that what they were doing was basically futile. That I wasn't going to get any better if I kept using. So I knew that I had reached the end game, right? The 13th hour. Like it wasn't, things weren't going to get any better, but I was still going to meet it. And one day, man, for I don't know for what reason, but around June 24th, 2008, I went to a men's meeting and I prayed to God. I said, God, please let me hear something today at this meeting that will help me stop using. And that was the day I stopped using. So this is kind of my point. When did I reach my bottom? I didn't reach my bottom when the doctor said she was going to chop my arms off. I didn't reach my bottom when I was constantly sick and cut up, man. It wasn't until I endured that pain for like another 6 months that I finally realized that there's no way out. Like either I stop or I die. Either I stop or I get my arms chopped off and then I die. But I just either I stop or it's going nowhere good. So I had to pray, man. And so that's kind of my point of this is that I was granted a gift, man. I was given a gift on that day, June 24th, 2008. I'm not talking about the gift of sobriety, man. I'm telling you, what happened was something deep inside on a emotional level, psychological level, a spiritual level. Something occurred with me that day. And what I call it is a God. Now, I know a lot of people get real uncomfortable when they talk about spirituality and religion, and I'm not necessarily talking about spirituality and religion. I love the abbreviation God, the acronym, okay, the acronym God, because for me, it represents the gift of desperation. And I finally, on that day, hit my bottom. I finally, on that day, became desperate enough to ask God to help me and to ask the people in the meeting to help me. And that was the day that I went up to Bob and said, hey, I'm ready to get sober. Will you help me? And he said, yeah, and I'll be your sponsor. And so it was June 24th, 2008. It's my sobriety date. And that's the day that I got the God, the gift of desperation. So I look at these people I work with and I try to figure out why they don't have that God. They don't have that overwhelming desire to change. And why can't I help them to do it? And then that brings me here now to the 4 Point Plan podcast and my two co-hosts, Sean and Guy, and how I've seen these guys work the 4 Point Plan and get incredible lives. And I try to figure out, how, man? And I realized, because I was thinking a lot about this, I realized it wasn't me, man. It wasn't me at all. I just showed you the plan and you guys knew what to do with it. but you guys found a way to get ready for this and be ready for this on your own. So I think what I want to talk about, and I want you guys to talk about, is what brought you there. How did you reach that point where you were finally ready, willing, and able to do what was required to do the 4 steps of the 4-point plan, and to be ready to actually change your life and to do it. So I want to jump over to Sean first. Sean, how much time you got clean? 19 months, 20?
Yeah, 1 year.
Ah, that's right. Got 1 year clean. And so around a year ago, you made the decision, man. And,
Oh, man.
what was it that brought you to the point where you were ready to do something different?
I was just so desperate. I destroyed everything in my life. All relationships that were in my life. I was pretty much alone and sleeping in my car. I was away from my kids, and I wanted to get out of it. I just didn't know how to get out of it. So, I got a little help from my brother. My brother dropped me off at a treatment center, and for me, my bottom, I feel like I forced myself to hit bottom. I used to live in this little condo, and meet my kids. I was away from my kids, and I went home, and I seen like their clothes hanging up, and they weren't there anymore. They were back with their mom, and it was lonely, and I couldn't deal with that pain, so I put everything in storage, and I decided to go live in my car and try to force myself to hit rock bottom. And it took me about 8 months of more destruction to actually reach that bottom of desperation and this loneliness and being broken and cut off from everybody that loved me. And it was all my doing, and I was tired of it, and I didn't want to live this that way anymore. And it was I didn't know how to get help. For most of my adult life, I was drinking and just destroying everything. I mean, it was fun at the time it was happening. I don't really have any regrets because it brought me here today, but it was a lot of painful and lonely times by myself and away from my family. And my mother died, and that was like the kickoff of my disease in 2013. And I didn't really know how to deal with death, so I just continued just to numb myself and self-medicate myself. And it was just a couple other series of events that happened up until the point where I did a geographic. I moved from Tahoe to LA to try to get better. And but the problem was me. I brought the problem with myself. I couldn't run from it because I was the problem. Without me working on myself, I was never going to be able to live life. I got into a couple bad relationships. Just trying to do something different. But what I needed was a program, and I needed a God. Like I was cut off from my God from a long time. It was choked up with fear, anger, frustration, anxiety, confusion. And it took me, once I finally was willing, I met my sponsor, and he said to stay willing, and I was willing. I was desperate, and I wanted to get better, and I didn't know how. And everything I tried it on my own. I tried to stopping, by myself, and it never worked. So I had to do something that I never tried before, and it was get uncomfortable and be part of the program AA, which I was unfamiliar with. So I was super quiet, and I just listened, and I did the 4-point plan, and I did my 90-90, and then 3 or 4 times, still doing it for the most part, except for Thursdays. But hitting your bottom I believe, is a crucial part of staying sober and getting sober, because it helps you remember. Like I was talking to God the other day at work about staying in desperation mode or staying in gratitude mode, because like for the first year, I rode the bus like to and from work. I rode the bus to and from the meetings, and I had to be at the meetings an hour early, so it took me like 3 hours there and back just for the meetings, to fellowship. And I had my car at the place I was staying at, but I didn't have my license yet, and I still didn't drive. And like my whole life, I would like, whatever, I'm going to drive. It doesn't matter to me. I would make the laws. I would whatever. It didn't matter. Like I knew the laws were there, but the consequences I didn't really wasn't scared of the consequences of getting in trouble or going to jail or until after it happened. Then I was then I was sorry and remorseful after I already got arrested or car getting taken away. But I stayed in that mode of gratitude mode and like just trying to do the next right thing. And it's taking me a long time. It's gonna take me a long time to reprogram everything and to try to do the next right thing. When it comes down to everything, it's just it's insane how much the program actually works in your life after you start learning it. And so I rode the bus so many times. I mean, for so long, for to and from the meetings and to and from work and everywhere, just so I could be so grateful when I got my license back to keep it and to how much it meant to saying I did the right thing for that whole time, not driving. And it was hard not driving and having the car. And but me and Guy talked about that the other day about riding the bus and trying to stay in desperation mode. We were talking to somebody outside about somebody wanting to do a job that the hours were kind of shady for the guy to go out and work doing Postmates or whatever it was. But is that if you're willing and you're able and you're desperate, I mean, it doesn't matter where you are, what time of the day, you're gonna stay willing and stay connected with the people and just stay sober. But that's how I stay sober. At the bottom, that's how I'm staying sober. It's a struggle.
I like that you talk about having made the decision that you were going to change things, and so you moved out of your place, and things were so lonely and so painful that you were going to do something different. Then you went and lived in your car for another 8 months. Like it.
I know.
And then the next good decision was, I got to get away from these drugs, so I'm going to move to Los Angeles. I don't know if you've heard, but Los Angeles has lots and lots of drugs. So
It goes pretty close.
You may have been a bad decision maker and a bad planner, but
reckless decisions. Reckless.
Like all of us.
Man, I'm the most selfish, self-centered, reckless decision maker that I've ever met. Irrational.
Your execution is a example actually that I tell people about often, because I can convince someone to just, while they're sitting at home, turn on their computer and go on a Zoom meeting for 1 hour. They think, oh my God, that's too much. And I'm like, dude, have you met Sean? Sean didn't even have a fucking car, man. He had to take a bus to a meeting that required him to be there an hour before the meeting to do his commitment. And he was there every fucking day. That means that he wasn't doing it for an hour, man. If you add in the time he had to be there early, the time he had to be there late, and the time that he spent riding the bus, that was at the very least a 3-hour commitment every single day. You think he didn't have other things he wanted to do? Of course he did. Yeah. But he believed us when we told him that this program, if you do what we suggest, it will make you have a life worth living, life that you could love and enjoy. And so I always tell him, man, be like Sean, check out what he did, go to the meetings that he goes to. He goes over to quality of life meetings, check those out. Like when I get a really hardcore case that comes to me, but they tell me that they have some level of willingness, I'd send them to you, man. I'm like, go to Sean and get the information for quality of life meetings, man. Because if you really want to change and you're willing to do the work, man, you go and do that and everything will change and your life will become amazing. I met a couple of people before you who were in quality of life, and I watched them as the process happened in their lives, and as things got better for them. And you can see it on you and you can see it on them. You can see a physical change in people as the lights come on in their eyes, and the hope begins to instill in them, and the pride and the integrity starts to come out. Because when we're using, man, we got no integrity. We never keep our word. We definitely have nothing to be proud of. Most of us can't even look in the fucking mirror without hating ourselves, man. But when people start working a program and living a program like Sean did, when they start doing the 4-point plan, man, and they come and see me and they pull out a keychain that says 30 days sober on it, like, those are proud people, man. Or 60 days or 90 days or 6 months. You watch people like grow and build with this enthusiasm and pride and integrity, and they have goals and they have hopes and dreams again. when I was using, man, I had no hopes and no dreams. I had one goal in life, $20. That was my only fucking goal in life, $20. I will suck a dick. I will fucking, I'll sell everything I own. I'll fucking, I didn't stick anybody up, but you know, I was robbing myself on the daily. I'll return a half-eaten box of cereal to the grocery store and demand they give me my money. Be like, hey, you want to buy a half-eaten box of cereal?
It's funny you say, because like I remember in groups you'd always say, if you doubt me, then take the challenge. Well, I doubted JR. I doubted the steps. I doubted his the foundation that was laid out in front of me. So I took JR's Pepsi challenge. I wanted to prove JR wrong. I wanted to show him that it didn't work. I was hoping that it did, and it did, but because
Hoping that it did.
you know, with the help of my home group, you know, that was they helped me with the self discipline that I needed to get to the meeting. You know, like the 4-point plan is the the base of it. You know what I mean? But you know, my home group helped me be accountable and to show up. And you say, oh yeah, well Sean probably didn't have anything to do. Sean didn't have a fucking job to go to. Well, no, I did. You know what I mean? I didn't want to spend 3 hours on the fucking bus going to a meeting, but I didn't know what else to do. You know, so I got a job also. I put my sobriety first because that's what has to come first. And then I scheduled everything else around my meeting. So if you're listening, get your sobriety stable first. Just get some days ahead of you. It's vital. Otherwise, you're like, well, I gotta go get a job. I gotta work. I gotta do this. I gotta do this. I had to put everything on hold. I had to put my kids on hold. I had to put my life on hold, trying to repair things. Like all that will come later on in life. Just get your sobriety first. You have to get your sobriety first.
If you've reached that point of desperation, man, you got to your number one priority, your recovery. And if that becomes your number one priority, you wake up every day. You wake up every day and say, what meeting am I going to today? And after that, you can decide when you're going to work and when you're going to see your family or whatever, when you're going to do homework or when you're going to have me time. But most important thing of that day is to figure out what meeting you're going to, at least for 90 days, man. Just do it for 90 days. The Pepsi challenge, I love that you brought that up because I throw that out there all the time. I tell people, and now it's even advanced. I say, listen, the 4-point plan for like 6 years, man. And I put the challenge out there to everybody. If you do the 4-point plan and it doesn't work, you can come to me and I will change it. Now, understand, I've got a podcast, I've got a website. I'll change the whole thing. If you can come to me after you've successfully and honestly done this thing and it hasn't worked, I'll change it. And so far, nobody has changed it, but it's good to know, John, that you were fucking planning on it.
Yeah, I was trying to change it.
But you couldn't change it because it's too good. You couldn't change
lot of people do that.
You couldn't beat the Pepsi challenge because the 4-point plan is too good.
I didn't want to change it. I wanted to be part of it.
Yes, when you are part of it, Mr.
Right.
Guy is also a part of it. Guy, Guy
Let
was
me
the
chime
more
in.
desperate, was one more the desperate fellas I've ever met. I'm obviously not going to tell a story for you, but I love you, man, and I love watching the changes that you've
Thank you.
had in your life. So tell
I
me how
love you
long
too.
you've been sober, and tell them kind of what brought you to that point where you were willing to try out something crazy like a 4-point.
Yeah. Well, hang on. I'd love to chime in right at this point because you guys are talking about desperation. First of all, desperation is essential on us getting clean, getting sober, making a change, right? It is. Desperation is not enough though to commit to doing 90 meetings in 90 days. I've witnessed that in myself. I've seen it with other people. We are all desperate in the beginning. I've seen people desperate coming into a detox, desperate walking into meetings for the first few days. They have their desperation level is up here. It's popping out of their head, right? I need help. Oh God. How do we stay in there? How do we stay in that desperation? Somebody might even commit to go to, oh yeah, I'll be here. I'll go to a meeting. Sure, I'll do it. I'll go to 90 meetings in 90 days. I hear it constantly. They'll do whatever it takes in those first few days. how soon that wears off. How soon that wears off. And I've seen it many times. I was completely desperate. I got to a point of desperation where I was going to do something that I never thought I was going to do before. I'm not talking about going to 90 meetings in 90 days. I went to a treatment center, a rehab. I didn't know anything about these places. I didn't know anything of what it was. I thought it was definitely a low. I knew I was going to try to get some help that I don't think I could have gotten anywhere else, which I didn't think meetings were going to work at that point. I didn't know. I had no willingness. I didn't have the willingness to do things before that point. I knew that I had to get involved in order for me to keep my sobriety into going into AA. I was looking at the people that were staying sober over 2 months or over 6 months or making it to a year. They were getting involved in programs, in 12-step programs. And I was like, all right, I want to keep this. I'm feeling good. Okay. So before I met JR, before I found out about this 4-point plan, I had a sponsor. I was going to some meetings. I liked going to meetings. I didn't have a commitment yet. Not a definite home group. I didn't even understand what a home group was. And then, it's that 90 and 90. That's the one that everybody gets caught up on. I think that's why JR, when he's putting together these 4-point plans, he didn't invent them, but he figured out these 4 things are keeping people building a strong foundation in their sobriety. And that first one, and everybody who talks about it, they know, like, number 1, 90 and 90. 90 and 90 is going to keep you there every day for 90 days, about 3 months minimum. I don't know, I shouldn't even say the word minimum. Someone will hear that. They're like, what? It might go on past 90 days? It's when we come in, we have desperation popping out of our heads. Almost everybody does. You tell someone to go to a meeting every day for 90 days, you'll see that backtrack. I got a dog and I gotta feed it. And I've heard a million of them, and I was saying them too. I got a job. It's hard. Even though I was going to a meeting hall where they had 7 meetings a day, from 5:30 in the morning was the first meeting, 7 meetings all day long, and the last meeting was at 8, 9 o'clock. And I couldn't make it there. What? I had to check myself. JR kept asking me about it, and there I was. I was like, okay. But you know what? That desperation started coming back for me because I stopped doing it a little bit. My meetings started dropping down. I was going to about 4 meetings a week, or 5 maybe when I met JR, and I thought that was pretty damn good. And it was pretty good. I felt it was, but they started dropping.
Fraction. That's a fraction.
They started dropping down. I wasn't committed to it. And then it got so bad again that I said, you know what? Let me see. Let me try this. It was almost like that challenge. I had a feeling it was going to work. I believed them. I wasn't trying to prove them wrong, but I was like, you know what? I better like do this before I go out or before my life gets any shittier staying sober. And I didn't want that. So meeting every day. I don't know. We got to keep that desperation is what I'm getting at. How do we keep that desperation? How do we have the willingness to commit to doing 90 meetings in 90 days? How do we have that willingness to commit to doing 90 meetings in 90 days? And then once we commit to it, how do we do it? How do we get to a meeting daily?
Well, I mean, you drink for every day for 90 days. And you drank 90 days.
Oh, you better believe it. 90 years.
Right.
Guy was doing like 5 meetings a week. I said, Guy, were you only drinking 5 days a week? What days
Right.
do you drink? Did you never drink on Wednesdays? Listen, if you never drank on Wednesdays, then you don't have to go to meetings on Wednesdays. And Guy's like, I drank
I
every
hated hearing
Wednesday.
that.
I drank
hated
every
hearing
Wednesday. I gotta go.
I hated hearing that. A lot of us do.
Another thing with me was if during my 90-90, if I missed one day, I had to start over. You know, so
I love that. I love
Yeah.
when sponsors hard ass. It's like, well, you could start over again.
oh yeah, it wasn't a you can, it was you are, or find a new sponsor.
Nice. Brutal. But you know what, man? Some of us need to be told what to do.
This guy did. I needed that structure and that discipline. I needed structure because my will did everything. I did everything myself.
And some people don't. Some people need to be told what to do, and then there's other people that they will say, "I don't need to be told what to do. I'm a human being. I got dignity. I got this and that." Okay, then, how are you going to make meetings a big part of your life? And if it works for you, if it doesn't work for you, you're going to look back and say, well, maybe I didn't get involved in the meetings enough. Maybe I didn't do this. Maybe I didn't do. Oh yeah, I forgot about that 4-point plan. Maybe I should have went to a meeting every day. Maybe that would have been. It would have been a big part of my life. All of those things, man. Most of us, I'd say like 80% of alcoholics and drug addicts do not want to be told what to do. And no one's telling us what to do right here. Nobody told me that I have to do this. You need to do this. What on earth? If you want this is how some people do it right here.
So there's a girl right now that first time in marriage, she says, there's no way I am not doing 90-90. I won't go to a meeting every day. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next time I saw her, she's like, oh, you know what, Jared, you were right. I'm gonna do the whole plan. I'm gonna do the 90-90 and everything. I was like, really? And then I seen her like 3 days later, and she's like, nope, I am never going to go to a meeting every day. I'm like, what the hell? What happened to your willingness? What happened to your desperation? It comes, it goes. I'm desperate on Tuesdays, but not on Thursdays. What the fuck, man? Like, and that's what Guy was saying, man. Desperation, it seems to be fleeting, man. People are only desperate for a couple days, and then
better believe it.
If they're sleeping in their car, they're desperate. But then, say they find a bed in the sober living, and they get to sleep indoors for a couple days, then they ain't desperate no more. Like,
yeah, we're getting booked at the station. We're getting cuffed. Oh God, please help me! I'll do anything. The 4-point plan. I'll do it.
What is that called, Guy? The circle of the spree and remorse. What is it? The spree cycle.
Cycle of spree and remorse.
Yeah. It makes sense when you drew that out for me. It makes I see it. I look at it every day, and I'm like, man, it's a trip.
We gotta live in that solution.
You gotta break the fucking cycle, man. You gotta break the fucking cycle. You gotta fucking get
off the hamster wheel.
The way to break the cycle is to live in a solution, and we're offering a solution to try to break that cycle.
A solution. We ain't offering a solution. We're offering the solution, people. Solution. If you guys are out there and you don't know what's going on, let me tell you what's going on. This is the fucking solution to drug addiction. This is a way out. You do not have to fucking die with a fucking bottle or a fucking needle in your arm or the bottom of a bottle of pills, man. You don't have to fucking die. You can live. You can live a life beyond your wildest dreams. And how? Fucking do 4 little things, man. They're 4 easy, simple little.
What are they again?
90-90. Get a sponsor. Get a home group. Get a commitment. I told you about the girl that couldn't do the 90-90. Another girl, I remember when I told her, you got to get a sponsor and call the sponsor. And she's like, well, when do I have to call the sponsor? I said, well, my got me calling him every day. And she goes, every day? I'm not going to call nobody every day. She ain't my probation officer. Yeah. I'm like, well, hey, you keep using, you'll get a fucking probation officer. Don't you worry about that.
You call the drug dealer every day.
Oh yeah, no shit. Yeah. I can't call my sponsor every day, but I'll call Chewy. I call him every day.
Chewy must have like 20 phones, man. He's getting so many calls every day.
Chewy's all over.
Blow his fucking phone up, man, but you can't call your sponsor, right? You can't get a home group. Guy, by the way, Guy was the hardest one to convince to get a home group. It's
Yeah.
like, well, I don't know. I go to lots of meetings. I'm like, all right, pick one. Well, I don't know. I got a weird. I'm like, all right, well, why don't you weird schedule your ass one day a week where you go to that one fucking meeting no matter what? Well, I don't know. I don't want to piss off my job. Man, fuck your job. Your job ain't gonna save your life. Fucking your home group will save your life. You know, your job. You know what? My job ain't gonna come out and support me no matter what I do. They're not gonna come to my wedding or whatever. But my fucking home group will, man. They're all there for me anytime I need. Right now, I could call anybody from the sharing from the heart meeting, which I haven't really regularly attended for a year. But I could call them right now, and those people would be here for me. If I needed to move, I needed something done, they'd be here for me. Sean's home group, it's fucking required to help you move. If you're going to move somewhere reasonable distance, say you're moving to Simi Valley, everyone at Sean's home group has a requirement.
Tradition.
That
Tradition.
they have to.
Yeah, it's a tradition.
Tradition.
You call it tradition if you want. They will, they will shun
that's
you. They
that's
will
what they told
scorn
me.
you. They will make you fucking be publicly humiliated if you miss helping someone move.
That is true.
Well,
You will have to share
stay
about
away,
it.
they stay away from that word requirement, I think, and they call it a tradition. Because when people hear that word required, we get so defensive. It's
Yeah.
just so
Well, see,
Tell me what to do. I know what I'm doing. Don't I look like I know what I'm doing? I'm a grown ass man. I know how to live my life. You don't know how to do shit, motherfucker. You know how to call your drug dealer. You know how to rob people. You know how to go to jail. But you don't know how to do sobriety. That's why I'm here to fucking teach you.
it worked out. It worked out good for me because one of my defects is people pleasing. So it worked out good. So when my sponsor wrote down my requirements, he said, "This is if you want to stay sober, you have to do what I did. That's all. If you don't want to, then go somewhere else." So he wrote down a list of what he required of me for him to sponsor me, and I'm a people pleaser, so I didn't want to let him down. I wanted to make him happy, so I did them all.
You know, me and my sponsor had a conversation just the other day. And we were talking about people that we love. They came to the program and then decided to leave again. And it was a little hard for us to wrap our heads around it because we love these people and the program has worked so well for us. And then I mentioned to him, I said, but you know what? You know, we take a good look at these people and they didn't use like we use, man. You know, our addiction took us to a level of desperation where we're willing to do this thing because we don't want to go back. Now, I'll tell you about a guy I know, and he came to me, and it was the first time I had met him, and I didn't know the whole story. I knew that there was something wrong with him. Physically, he looked very thin. His skin was kind of an off, like a grayish color. He spoke very slowly, and um, it seemed like there had been some cognitive damage, like he had given himself brain damage from drinking and using. And so slowly he explained to me what the story was. And over the time I've known him, I've got to know a little bit more about his story. But what was happening that day that I met him was he had just come from a doctor who had told him that he had less than 2 months to live. That he had drank his liver into a point where his liver was going to fail and he was going to die if he didn't stop drinking and get a transplant as soon as possible. It was a scary thing because I met him and he seemed like a pretty nice guy. And he was sitting in my office with me. And I remember having this feeling, man, that this guy might not survive. Like I'm meeting someone that looks almost like a ghost and his drinking just might fucking kill him. And I gave him the 4 point plan. I said, listen, man, this thing has saved people's lives. If you're willing to do it, I promise you a better quality life. I didn't know that I could be looking at someone that would be dead soon, but I kind of knew, and it was a weird, sad situation. But I gave him the 4 point plan, man. I said, go to 90 meetings in 90 days. You live over there by Radford Hall. Go to Radford Hall. They have meetings every day. They have multiple meetings every day. Get in there. I got some friends over there. Tell them your story. Raise your hand and then find a way to be of service to a meeting, like even if it's getting there early and setting up chairs or whatever you can do, man. But do the 4 point plan, man. Find a home group, find a meeting that week that you're going to go to every week, and just go to a meeting every day. Get sponsored. And I saw him a week later, and I was like, "Hey, man, did you go to meetings?" She said, "Yeah, I went to 7." I said, "What? You went to 7 meetings? Really?" Because in my mind, I'm like, you know, physically you're not well, and mentally you're not well, and emotionally you're not well because you've wrecked your family. And I was really scared for the dude. And when he told me he went to a meeting every day that week, I was shocked. I was really shocked. I didn't think that he maybe was capable of doing it. Really, I don't know if I had ever seen anybody that drank himself, that near the brink, that near the edge of death, and uh, and so he did it, and he continued to do it, and I guess it was about a month, maybe 2 months later, when like his speech started to speed up a little bit. He's still not like a New York person who talks real fast, but he speaks at closer to a normal speed now. And he's now, I just think of him as cool, someone who talks a little bit slow because they're fucking cool, right? um,
Some other guy who's got a year on Friday.
I have no idea what you're talking about. But anyways, oh yeah. So anyways, he he started telling me, "Hey man, I'm doing the 4 point plan. I'm doing the 4 point plan." I'm like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Well, how's it working? And what does your family think?" And he's like, "Everybody loves it, man, and things are getting better. And I don't think you realized how bad it was. It used to be I would be drunk all the time and I'd fall down and hurt myself and shit, and that doesn't happen anymore." And I went to the doctors, and the doctors said that they're seeing regeneration, and that things are working really good in my liver, and they're amazed, and they've never seen a miracle like me. And he continued to do all these things, man. Now he's secretary to a meeting, and he calls his sponsor every day still. And like, it's just an amazing thing to see when it happens. And I know, man, that this dude was desperate. Like, he got to that point, man, on the brink of death. And he turned it around, and that, yeah, this week he has he'll celebrate 1 year sober, and it's maybe the happiest fucking sober birthday I've ever seen. I'm so stoked for him. But he had the gift of desperation, and with the gift of desperation, he did the 4 point plan. It wasn't like these guys the guy was talking about, who their desperation is fleeting. They're only desperate in the moment, or they're desperate for a week or a couple days, and then they go back to being a jackass. Now this guy, he stayed with the desperation. And I talked to him the other day. I said, "Hey, so remember you were on the liver transplant list, and you said that they were feeling positive about you and things were doing okay. What's the story on that?" He said, "Oh, they told me I could probably go another 2 years before they needed to give me a new liver." And that this was a guy who had 2 months to live, and now the very same doctors are telling him, "You're going to live, and we can give you a new liver in 2 years, and you'll still live with that too." So he's a miracle, and a miracle. I hate to say it, guys, but it really honestly looks this way. A miracle facilitated by the gift of desperation combined with the execution of the 4 point plan. This dude got another chance at life. And not just like a short another chance at life. He got a long another chance at life. He's already lived 600% longer than they told him he could. Like, this is a
Right.
fucking miracle. And how did he do it, man? He did what we told him to. He did the 4 point plan. 4 point plan could save your fucking life.
And others, because you're able to live to share it with other addicts and alcoholics.
Right.
If JR and Guy wouldn't have done it, I might not. When I came along, I might not have got that little extra hint, a little tip they gave me, the little challenge that JR challenged me to.
Yeah, the results are real. I'm sure somebody here was talking about this, and people did it before me. I watched other guys do it with me as well when I was doing mine, and one of them I know he finished it, and he's still sober today. I seen people do it past me, like yourself, Sean. And I was in a meeting a couple weeks ago, and this guy from, I don't know, I was on a Zoom meeting, and he's from Riverside County or somewhere way the hell out there. And he was saying, he brought up the 4 point plan, and I was like, who the heck is this guy? And he's all, I guess he knew one of my sponsees. And when he was brand new coming into these Zoom meetings, my sponsee had told him, like, do these 4 things. My sponsor told me about it. And so he did these, he told him about these 4 things. He called them 4, he didn't say 4 points. He said 4, I can't remember the word, but 4 duties or something he said. And
4 duties. Well, we're gonna change. We're gonna be the 4 duties from now on.
yeah, he said some weird word, and then I was like, "What's he talking about?" And he listed them, and then it was the 4-point plan, and he's all, "Yeah." And this guy, he told me about these 4 things, and he did it. So I was like, "Man, look at that! Look at the results, just getting passed on to the next guy." And this guy, he's like coming up on 9 months right now, and he's staying sober. And he attributes it to doing these 4 duties or whatever, something he calls it.
4 duties. There's the one girl calls it the 4.0, and then that girl.
Oh yeah.
There's the girl that goes to Sean's home group. She calls it the secret recipe. She actually spoke in front of a whole meeting, like 100 people were in the meeting, and she stand up there and she says, "Hey everybody, I have the secret recipe. It's 90 and 90. Get a sponsor, get a home group, get a commitment." And the next day, everybody was like, "Hey, JR, this girl stole your thing."
Yeah, however it keeps going, that's what matters, right, guys?
Yeah.
It works though. You see the results, and you
whatever it takes to get you into a meeting, whatever it takes to get you in, whatever it takes.
Dude, I'll negotiate, man. I will sit there all day and try to figure out new ways to trick people into going to meetings.
Well, this is the 4-point plan is the thing that keeps us in the meetings, right?
Yeah.
Going back to that desperation thing and how we have that in the beginning. Do this 4-point plan. It keeps us coming back to the meetings. It keeps us involved. It lets us get to know the people at the meetings. It builds up a support group that is supportive of us. They want us to stay clean and sober. And that's how we do this thing.
The desperation gets you to the meeting, and then when you stop being desperate, you want to be able to have a strong sobriety so you don't go back out there.
I stay desperate though. I stay connected to my last day using. I stay connected to that story I told you about.
Me too.
Arms off. Like I stay desperate. So that keeps me going. But getting people there for the first time, I came up with this thing where I decided that everybody I met was poor and homeless, and they probably didn't go to meetings because they were afraid they couldn't afford to go. Like they couldn't afford the bus fare, or they were afraid they didn't have much money in their pockets, and they didn't want to take the chance of leaving the house and spending money. And so what I did was I compiled a list of meetings that gave out free food. And I was like, "Hey, did you know that the Friday meeting has pizza? You can go to a Friday meeting, you can eat some pizza. The Saturday morning meeting has got bagels. I got the Sunday morning meeting. It's got cupcakes and donuts." Like I made a list of, I'll do it. I'll say anything to trick people into going to meetings.
Some people love that.
With some young, like single dudes, and I'll be like, "Hey man, did you know that Friday night meeting at Dickens has all these supermodel girls at it, man? You need to go check out these girls." Like I'll say anything, man, to get someone into a meeting. I tell them, if you go to the Pacific Group, I heard that if you go there and you get a commitment and you don't have a suit, they'll buy you a suit. And then I've even say that if you stay clean for a year, they might buy you a car. Now, I'm not saying they'll buy you a car, but I'm saying I've heard rumors that they might buy you a car. So if you really need a car, just go to the Pacific Group for a year and see if it happens.
You might not afford a car after a year. Yeah.
Or they can continue to be Night of the Living Basehead.
Oh no, man! Turn your
zombies. I love that you talk about zombies because that's what it is, man. We were all walking around dead.
JR was a zombie.
Physically dead.
You
had dead skin. I was dead inside. I was dead up here. We're dead all over.
I had a couple of dead teeth. I know that my teeth were dying.
Yeah, that too.
I know my razor was dead. I didn't have a razor for a long time.
My razor was
dead. But now now we're all very much alive, man. We're alive thanks to the 4-point plan, the program that saved our lives, the gift of desperation, the God. So this isn't a thing about a spiritual God or a religious God. We're talking about, man, we were desperate and we found a program that changed everything and saved us. And that program is the 4-point plan. It's 90 meetings in 90 days. Get a sponsor and use that sponsor. Get a home group and never miss your home group, and get a commitment. Get more than one commitment. Find a way to be of service to the program that will save your life. I'm super stoked today. The gift of desperation is one of the things that means the most to me, because without it, I would certainly either be armless or dead. So I love this. I thought it was a good discussion today. Sean, do you have any last words for our listening public?
Not really. I think I summed up a lot today. Just stay desperate and just stay connected, and find your God, and just and stick to it, and just keep coming back. 'Cause you don't have to be desperate forever. Come be desperate with us. And they can't see me. I apologize for that. I'm alive.
Keep coming back. Keep coming back, he says. Guy, what do you think, man?
Give this 4-point plan a shot. If you're that desperate, maybe try this thing out.
And don't lose your desperation, guys. Stay desperate, stay hungry for recovery, stay connected, don't drift away. If you find yourself drifting away, if you find yourself not wanting to go to a meeting, that means it's time for you to go to a meeting, right? So get out there, man, and come visit us at the 4-point plan website. It's spell it out, 4pointplan.com, or you can email us at number 4pointplan@gmail.com. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify. We're out there, man. The 4-point plan is out there, and it's saving lives, and it saved a couple of good lives right here before you with me and Guy and Sean, and it could save your life too, man. So keep coming back. Thank you.
And quit living like a zombie.